Hey guys, and welcome to another Walk-In Wednesday. I'm getting back to my roots today because I've got some Lugers and some Walthers to show you. That's the guns I'm most comfortable with, and hopefully that's the guns you like to hear about. Also, I have two totally unique one-of-a-kind guns. Now, some of you write to me and say, how many one-of-a-kind guns can you possibly find? And that's the beauty of working here at Legacy Collectibles. This stuff just shows up. And like, for example, we just got this gun in this week. I just don't know where this stuff comes from, other than people send it to me. So thank you for sending me these rare guns. This is one of a kind. When it first came in, we opened it up and I said, you can guess it, what the heck is it? So come take a look over on my shoulder and we'll talk about it. Okay, let's take it one step at a time, although it's hard to overlook this bulbous piece. Remember the bulbous piece, the bulbous piece on the bore shard? This has a bulbous front end, and let's just talk about that first. Obviously, it's some kind of a flash hider or a muzzle cover, but I've certainly never seen one on a Luger before. I took a look at the gun, as you will with me, and I see it's a 1939 second variation. So instead of S42, it's a 42 code, which means Mauser factory. It was issued to the military, no big deal there. There's actually an odd proof right here, which upon looking at it through a magnifying glass, I can see it is a British proof, and then we see a lot more British proofs right here. Now, for a lot of collectors, that's a distraction, having the British proofs. I don't know why they had to smack so much stuff into the gun. Doesn't really ruin it, but it does tell me that it was captured by the British, and they required that be added when it was imported into Great Britain. Also, it has a Navy marking, N3960, so North Sea, Wilhelmshaven. This went to the Navy, so that makes it a pretty rare gun. It does have all matching numbers except for the magazine. The magazine is correct. Eagle 63 makes it a little bit earlier than the Eagle 655, but it is period correct. You do see some freckling here, which could be salt air getting on the barrel or anywhere on the finish and not wiped off. It will make those little speckles. But let's get to the obvious elephant in the room, or elephant on the end of the barrel, is this muzzle cover. And you can see that it was just added. So what I concluded was, what a shame somebody, probably in England, added that on, and why the heck would they do that? What a shame. That was my conclusion. But fortunately, we have reference books, and so that led me to, oh my, silly me. Check this out. Okay, this book is one of my favorites, and in fact, if you're a collector, Axis Pistols is my favorite. Now, unfortunately, it's out of print. You can almost never find it, and when you do, it can be $400 to $600. Axis Pistols by Jan Still is, for me, by far the best collector's book. Goes over all different variations, and look at this. You can see the muzzle cover, and this, by the way, is the only one known. I'm sure there were others made. The exact same gun, you can actually see the British proof here, and better yet, you see the Navy marking, 3960, Navy marking 3960. Down here, he has the serial number of the gun, and of course, it matches. Now, what he says, now this is just conjecture, but it allowed me to take what I thought is a mistake when I purchased this. I paid too much, into, you know what, it's worth a lot more than what I paid. Because what Jan Still says, and I'll just summarize what he says here, it was most likely made for some kind of special forces in the Navy. Now, again, just conjecture, so, you know, I can't prove any of this, but here's what makes sense to me. British proofed. It was captured by the British. It is known that the Submarine Corps and Special Forces did a lot of operations off the coast and on the coast of England during the war. They dropped off scuba divers and they mined harbors and they had secret missions. In fact, I think there was a mission to capture Winston Churchill. They send in Special Forces, and this gun, according to Jan Still, and again, I think this was conjecture on his part and my conjecture as well, that this was specially fitted for the Special Forces to hide the muzzle flash. Now, you would have to ask yourself, why wouldn't they just do a threaded silencer or sound suppressor? And I agree wholeheartedly. I can't answer that. All I can say is this is a very cool looking gun with perhaps an even cooler history. So that's a one-of-a-kind gun. If you've seen another, let me know. That's the only one I've ever seen. Now here's the second one-of-a-kind gun, and this is an engraved Walther PP. Come take a look. Okay, the most important part is the serial number when dealing with engraved guns. And by the way, this came from one of our viewers in Cody, Wyoming. So how in the world does Cody, Wyoming come up with this rare factory engraved PP? The first thing I do is look at the serial number. If you watch my videos, I did a whole video on factory engraved guns, and you can see it's in the 215 range, actually 215-344, right in the middle of a solid block of factory engraved guns. Now, these were ordered in about 1940. And then they were given out as rewards or prizes or presentations to loyal Nazis. Also, remember the Hans Philipp gun that I showed you? That's an engraved PP, and that was given out. But these were ordered in 1940. I'm not sure who ordered them, but probably a party official. There's at least about 100 of them, and this was one of them. Now, here's another clue. There are no proof marks. And a small percentage of these were left in the factory and found when the GIs came in. April of 1945, the GIs came into the factory and they captured guns that were there in the factory. There was a number of them that were unfinished. The slides were fully engraved and the frames were fully engraved, but they hadn't done anything to like the trigger guard or the magazine bottom. Like here, the safety, they got engraved because basically they would have 90% of the work done, but then somebody would special order, they would finish it up and deliver it. This one was never issued, so I know it was in the factory. I know it was factory engraved. I've never seen one that has this phosphate finish. In fact, when the owner first told me about it, I said, it's going to be in white metal, bare metal, no finish at all. And he didn't correct me because he figured I was the expert. And then it came and I said, that's a phosphate finish. Now let's take a look at the engraving. This is also something I've only seen once before, very, very rare. You will remember most of them were oak leaf and acorn. This one is, I would call it grapevine, and these are cluster of grapes with grapevine. It's not real distinct grapevine, but clearly it's like a floral arrangement. There's a flower. I'm thinking grapevine and grapes. Let's look at this side. Same thing. Now that's clearly a flower, but I call this a grapevine engraving, and I've only seen a couple of them. So this is a very rare engraving. And the dull phosphate, you know, I hate to say it's ugly, but it's really not my favorite. The Germans, I don't believe, would ever have phosphated this gun. Let's look at the back. I don't believe the Germans phosphated this gun. And by the way, it did not come with these grips. It came with a set of post-war grips, which the owner said I added those later. So I put these grips on it because oftentimes they would use these brown mottled grips. They also have used red and, of course, ivory, and then just your standard black. I added these because, as I said, that somebody put on post-war grips. But thinking through how did this gun come to be, I believe it was in the white metal. The Germans left it that way. The GIs finished putting it together, or it was already put together, but still unfinished in that this was not engraved. The bottom wasn't engraved. Several other small parts would have been engraved. Even the trigger guard would have been engraved, and the trigger would have been engraved. And then the GI said, let's put a finish on it. And what they had in the tank that was nearby, now I'm sure they had a bluing tank, but they also had a phosphate tank. And let me show you what a late war phosphate looked like. Okay, so some of this makes perfect sense, and some of it I need to stretch a little bit, but I'll talk to you about a phosphate finish. Now this is from the Mauser factory. You see the blue finish here. This is obviously an HSC. Blue finish here, blue finish here, blue finish here, but it's an all phosphated gun. And Mauser was doing that. I believe with rifles they were doing the same thing. They were doing all phosphated guns. Now phosphate was cheaper and less durable. So cheaper to phosphate a gun, but it wore off really quickly. If any of you collect, you know phosphated guns often have wear patterns that are a little bit distracting. Also the coloration, see how that's dark and then light. The phosphated finish was very non-uniform, and actually let's take a look at this P38. Now this is one of my favorites, but it's almost like a tiger stripe. Look at the stripe going through there. This is a beautiful phosphate. And again, this is a Mauser P38. Beautiful phosphate with a little stripe through it. Look at the other side. Inconsistencies in the finish. This is a beautiful blue. So the phosphate to the Germans was a cheap alternative to just get it out the door. So it's not something that I think they would have used on a presentation engraved gun. But the GI came in and the tank was there and he said, what the heck? Let's just dip it. Again, just conjecture on my part, but it's my channel, so I can conjecture all I want. Now, here's the part of the story that some of you are already saying, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. The Mauser factory was phosphating guns, but as far as I know, the Walther factory was not phosphating guns. They phosphated parts. Here, I will show you. Here's an AC45 P38. So this is 1945. It's actually April of 1945. And this is typical that they were using phosphated parts. So this is phosphated, the top plate is phosphated, this is phosphated, this is phosphated. Everything else is blue. Those of you who collect, you probably have the same thing. At the end of the war, they were phosphating parts, but they were not phosphating the whole gun as in the Mauser factory. This phosphate was made about the same time as this phosphate, maybe dipped in the same tank. And that's why I think it was done by the GI. I don't think the Germans would have done this. I think it was unissued. The GI came in, he finished putting it together, he dipped it in the phosphate tank, and let's take a look at this magazine. Phosphated magazines. Now I have seen magazines that were phosphated, but the bottom piece was always blued. So phosphated mag with a W on the back, which means unhardened, which also means 1945. I've seen this before, never seen this before. All this is to say this entire gun was phosphated, I believe, by the GI who captured it in the factory. When I say the GI, let me just clarify. The GIs were paying the Polish forced labor. At the end of the war, I believe it was about 6,000 Polish forced laborers were in the factory. They're waiting to go home. There's no transportation. The war's not quite over. The GIs did pay them in cigarettes or food rations, and they were not very happy with the Germans, but they were happy to help out the Americans. So this probably was done by one of the Polish workers, and it was done by a GI who brought it back. And that GI, this gun, ended up in Cody, Wyoming. Now it's available from Legacy Collectibles. I couldn't be more proud. All right, moving on to the next gun, because here at Legacy, we're on the move. And this also is a unique, one-of-a-kind gun, but that's only because the serial number is one of a kind. That's right, only one gun has this serial number, and I'm going to show it to you. It's really hard to read, but I wanted you to see how early this is, and this is just very, very cool. I have shown you early guns before, and I always talk about the production differences in the early guns. And one of the production differences is the serial number is reversed. Here I have another PP made a little bit later, and the way for the PPs and PPKs, the way you read the serial number is if you're in the aiming position and you turn it and look, the serial number will be right side up. And this is in the 900,000 range. This one is hard to read, but the earliest ones, aiming position, you turn it and look, it's upside down. And they changed that really quickly. Just for your ability to see it, you can't really see the 7. We have a picture of it here. Maybe you can see it a little better. But this, the first one was 750-001. That was the first gun. So this is the 432nd gun made. This is the earliest I think I've ever owned. And we are going to make it available. I believe everything on this gun is original, and I'm going to go through most of it. All of this is original, including the magazine, with the exception of the safety. The reason being, the earliest safety variation was a fat safety, and you can see one here. You can see that it's a lot fatter. This is the standard safety. It is 90 degree because it goes down all the way. Later they went to, oh, that's 90 degree as well. Well, here's a 60 degree safety because it only goes down 60 degrees, 90 degree. So this was swapped. It should be a fat safety, but it is a heavy hammer. Looking at this one, you can see the circle is a thicker, heavier hammer. This is called the heavy hammer. It has 60 degree, but not fat safety. Okay, I pulled this apart really quick just to show you some of the early features internally. These have a covered firing pin. It's actually a one-piece firing pin as opposed to two. But it is, what you notice is the firing pin is covered. You can see on this other one, it's open firing pin, makes it a lot easier to get the firing pin in and out. The earliest guns had the enclosed firing pin. So I think that's the first time I've taken this apart and shown you on camera. Also, while we have it apart, by the way, they're both crown end. 1940, they went to eagle end proof. Now on this early gun, it has X grips. Now that's a really early variation. I already took the screw off camera. See the X grips? I don't know that I've ever shown that before, but that's the really early grips. This was like a reinforcement. But then pre-war, they went to the weighted grips. And these are the weighted grips that came in the gun that's 900,000. You can see the difference between the X grip. These are really rare. The X grips can sell for $400 or $500. These weighted grips are a lot cheaper. And then during the war, they just had hollow grips. That was, again, cheaper still, the hollow grips. The hollow grips were made just because they were cheaper and quicker to manufacture during the war. So beyond the X grips, the other thing that you'll notice about this gun is the magazine. Let's take a look at the magazine. It has, I have a whole video just on the magazines, but it has the slab side, first variation finger extension. And the reason I think this all came together is the wear. And also it was just the first maybe 1,000 or less had this open follower. If you have a PP magazine, 99.9% have a closed follower just because it works a lot more smoothly. See, when I push that down, it feeds in there perfectly. Push this down, it's awkward because it hits. It's an open follower, and they only had that in the first maybe 1,000. So this magazine is extremely rare. Open follower versus closed follower, and slab side versus the indentation. So I believe that this magazine came with this gun from the factory. In fact, everything on that gun I believe is factory original, with the exception, as I've already mentioned, the fat safety. One other thing I forgot to show you is on these really early guns, the barrel is slightly extended. Look at this late, obviously, well, this one was made in 1940, but just as a comparison, you can see how the barrel does not extend as far. The early variation just had a slightly extended barrel. So this gun came in this week, one of a kind in that it's just really, really early, and we will be making it available soon. Okay, one of the guns that I used to compare is not one of a kind, but it is noteworthy. Remember, it was in the 900,000 range. But you might not have noticed, it is in 9mm. It's Germany marked, but the 9mm, and that's the actual, it had a slide etching that they put in here. They milled out the 9mm and filled it in with 380. Now that had to be a special request. This was probably imported by a retailer in the United States. It had to be, once it was imported into the United States, it had to have the country of origin. So that was done at the factory, and I believe that it was milled out at the factory, and it was a special order, 380. I've only seen maybe one or two. I think one is shown in Rankin's book. Jim Rankin wrote a book on Walthers. So this is a very rare gun from my personal collection. The magazines, by the way, the early 9mm magazines were not even marked 9mm. And so they got confused, and so later they added 9mm. That was inscribed later. You can tell by the metal being white. They etched that in over the finish as 9mm because it doesn't show up here. So this is actually a very early 9mm that went to the United States, and the slide legend was altered. So this is a pretty cool gun in and of itself. Okay, now I'm going to show you a gun that all you Walther collectors are going to want. I know because I want it. I'm probably not going to end up with it. I do need to offer it. It's being offered on consignment, and we will make it available on our website hopefully soon. But you see the RZM marking. So this is the early 1934-1935 RZM. They just never come this beautiful. There's only about 1% wear right at the muzzle. You can still see the fire blue here. Just an absolutely near perfect gun. I would rate this gun 99%. Now, everybody wants a 99% RZM. These are crown end proofs. Again, very early, very nice high polish finish. And the RZM marking, that was basically the Nazi Party purchasing department, and they put their logo on there because these were offered to party members. When you became a party member, one of the perks was you could buy your uniform, you could buy different things, including you could buy the party emblem or the party purchasing emblem on your gun. And they bought them at a discount. They also did a payment plan. And so, again, not a party leader, but a party member. As a party leader, and once you paid your dues, you were entitled to buy one of these guns. And it was actually a way that the party raised money. They bought them at a discount. They actually ordered 30,000 of these from Walther, and then they sold them to their members. They must have been a pretty popular item because they actually ran out of them. And then somewhere in the 200,000 range, they made some more RZM PPKs, and they're even rarer than these. But again, about 30,000 of these were made. They were issued early and to party members, and they were used because most of the ones I see are not anywhere near this condition. Now, then the party leader grip, not party member, but party leader grip, this was actually considered an honor weapon, and you had to get permission from whoever your supervisor was to purchase this grip. And some people say you could not purchase the grip by itself. Other people say, yes, you could purchase just the grip. So if I was a party member in 1934, and by the way, the first time this grip shows up in the catalogs for people who wanted to order, they wanted to order their holster, party leader holster, or an SA holster, or even an NSKK holster. Those were found in catalogs. The first time they show up is 1938. So this is made in 1934 or 35. This is made in 1938, so they did not come together. However, it certainly is reasonable that I was a party member. I better rephrase that. I don't want to say this because somebody will take that clip and put it on the internet. A party member could buy the gun in 1934 with just a standard grip. I'm covering it up. Just a standard grip. 1938, they come out with this. They love it. And instead of buying another gun, they go to their supervisor and say, could I get permission to buy the grip? They can then go buy the grip and they put it on the gun. There's no way for me to prove that or say that happened. This could have been done, couldn't have been done last week because I've had it for a week. But it could have been done more recently by a collector. I can't say for sure, but is it possible that the original party member later added this grip? Absolutely. They came together. I'm leaving them together. It's a stunning example. And if it were up to me, I would just leave it the way it is. Let's take a look at this magazine. But again, it's a great story piece because you can make up your own story about who this went to. Look at that magazine. Just the finish on it is absolutely beautiful. So this will be an expensive item, but I think just a beautiful example. And when are you going to see another one like it? Okay, now I have a new feature that I'm excited about because we're always looking for something new, but we actually take a look at the analytics, not we, Randy, who's behind the camera, takes a look at the analytics of our channel. And by far the most popular with over 2 million views. When we had the Springfield 1911 that was dug up in a battlefield, we couldn't prove that, but it was pretty beat up. And we talked about restoring old guns, and it turns out that that was one of our most popular. And one of our most popular terms is the word restoration or restoring. And I've watched some restoration videos, and I can see why. It's actually fascinating. I personally don't like to have guns refinished. However they come in, I let it go because I figure that's part of the history. However, this gun came in and it left me in a quandary because it's such a beautiful gun, except for a few flaws that don't make any sense to me. Come take a look. Now, the only reason I want to show this to you now is because what I'm proposing is we do a before and after. If you remember, if you saw the M1 carbine infrared sniper scope, we restored that. It took a couple of months, but we got the sniper scope to work again. It's actually infrared scope. We got it working again, and we showed you the before and the after, and I was really, it was actually one of the most fun times I've had here doing a video. This is not as cool as an infrared scope, but here's the way this gun came in. Now, this is a 42 code, so remember that's the Mauser factory, 1940. All the markings look correct for 1940. It's Eagle 655. But this corrosion on here, I can't explain. Look how nice the finish is. I mean, there's obviously some ugly spots and some ugly spots here. And again, I usually don't restore a gun, but some kind of corrosive liquid must have gotten on here. It's not this normal wear pattern, just a beautiful gun here. But what happened here? And this is not blood splatter. I know people like to talk about blood splatter. I don't believe that's the case, but it did corrode parts of the gun. Now, just imagine how nice this would be. It did come with broken grips. And so what I can do is I can put a pair of wooden grips on here, and I do have plenty of spare magazines with the aluminum bottom. That's what it should have. So what I'd like to do is propose that let's send this out to get reblued. Again, something I almost never do, but let's take a look at the before and after. Now, I'll make sure Randy gets lots of pictures of the before, and we'll show it again, but we'll show it after. And you'll get to see what happens when somebody restores a gun. Perfect candidate because this is not pitted. It's just corroded over the blue. If it was pitted, I wouldn't bother. And so I know because a lot of you consider getting your guns restored. Here's a little bit of corrosion right at the top here. And when that's in place, you don't want to blue over that. You have to buff that out. And so if it's deep pitting, when they buff it out, it just rounds off all the edges. So here it would be rounded off, here it gets rounded off. So I don't like to mess with a gun that's pitted. I just leave it alone because by the time you get it done buffing, it just never looks right. This, I think, is a really good candidate. I'd almost say a perfect candidate to either touch up some of the parts. I'm not sure what they'll recommend, but I always think less is better. So maybe just touch up a few of these sparts. Touch up these sparts. Like I would leave the grip straps alone. That doesn't bother me that much, but we'll see what the restorer says. I would probably leave this alone and look at the top. This is great. So just touch this up and see how it turns out. I think it would be educational both for you and for me because often people say, is it worth it? What is this gun worth right now? Well, 1940 in this condition, let's assume I put correct wooden grips and a mismatched magazine in it. In today's market, this is not going to sell for $2,000, but it's probably going to be more than $1,500. So between $1,500 and $2,000. Let's do some work on it and see what we get. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something today. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel and tell other people because we're trying to get to 100,000 before the end of the year, and we've got a ways to go. And a special thank you to all of our patrons. Thanks for supporting the channel. And you know what, Randy? It's been a while since we did any free giveaways, so stay tuned. We need to do some more.